reflection and Pledge of Allegiance by Trustee.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
All right, roll call.
Would you like me to do it for him? I will do it for Dr. Smith. Trustee Bartow?
Sorry.
Trustee Bartow? Here. Trustee Matoye? Here. Trustee Crane?
Here.
Trustee Anderson?
Here.
Trustee Ursulou?
Here.
Trustee Wygand?
Here.
Trustee Yelsey?
Here.
Dr. Smith?
Here.
There you go.
Okay, adoption of the agenda.
Move adoption.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Trustee Yelsey, seconded by Trustee Matoye. Roll call vote?
Trustee Bartow.
Yes.
Trustee Matoye.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson.
Yes.
Trustee Ursulou. Trustee Wygand.
Yes.
Trustee Yelsey.
Yes.
Great. Community input on special agenda items only.
We have one.
This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items on the special meeting agenda only. Comments on special meeting agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per comment, up to 20 minutes per topic. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another person.
Ms. Lees.
Yes, good afternoon, Board President, members of the school board. My name is Wendy Lees. One thing about this meeting is that the timing. It isn't really friendly to the public. People can't just drop everything and come down here. I would request that moving forward, you have meetings that are at 6 p.m. Also, the way the agenda is structured, it's impossible to comment on alternative education because there is no attached report to the agenda. Being on the city council and going to city council meetings, there are staff reports attached to the agenda items so that the public is informed, whether it's a copy of the PowerPoint that's going to be presented, so that we're really at a loss as the members of the public to know what you're going to discuss and what direction you're going. It's a very broad topic, talking about alternative education. So I suggest that you, in the future, have staff do reports, written reports, so that the public can be on the same page with you, literally, understanding. You have very highly paid staff that is perfectly capable of doing a written report to give the public a little more information. Personally, my son benefited from the alternative education program when he was in Newport-Mesa. He went from Estancia to Newport to Back Bay, and he ended up graduating from the college, the early college it wasn't called early college, it was something else, but it was at OCC. So I hope that you will reorganize, or whatever you're planning to do today, to consolidate or to save money, that there are kids out there who bounce around and who still need, he's dyslexic, still dyslexic, but he did graduate from middle college, high school is what it was called, and it was very thankful. Finally, I don't want to see any, as a taxpayer, I would not like to see any form of critical race theory in our alternative education programs. I don't want to see it come in through contracts or supplementary education material that is not fully vetted in public. I know you vote on the textbooks, there's a 30-day viewing period, but that isn't true with those materials that are outsourced. So I just want to make sure that, that as far as alternative education, I'm sticking to the rules that no critical race theory is attached. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is a study session, so we'll be learning more, but we unfortunately have to, unfortunately move to closed session. The items are A, conference of legal counsel existing litigation, B, liability claim, and C, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, employment. And we will move at 12:35. Where it pays my bills, and people ask me about alternative ed study sessions, which actually happened yesterday when I went to work. So I think a lot of people are really excited to hear about this.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of different items in front of you today, so you'll see that we have a brief slide presentation that I'll go through in just a moment. And then we also have a blue folder, and in that blue folder are all the documents that were previously shared with you with one addition. And we'll walk through the folder at the end of the presentation. The way today will work is we are going to kind of just reacquaint you with what alternative education is, what it looks like in our district, and then we're going to talk about the nuts and bolts, get into budget, academic data, and other student-related data. And our outcomes for today will be for the board to provide feedback to us on program improvement for our alternative education programs. Okay.
It might be helpful too. I know that the AV booth can pick up what you're all saying, but you here at the table may not be able to hear one another. And so I guess as the trustees maybe start to dialogue, if you want to say something, maybe we can give you the mic and so you can be heard. And it's being picked up, but the issue might be hearing one another.
Yes, and I know we have loud voices, so feel free to use them today. And we do have several of our directors present this afternoon, and appreciate them being here because the work and outcomes of today's session will land in Ed Services, and so we will continue to collaborate as a team to make any enhancements or changes to the program. So let's talk a little bit about alternative education, and so if I could just direct your eyes either to the screen behind you or the presentation in front of you, either one. For our team here today, just a reminder that we have basically three alternative education sites and programs that we operate in the Newport-Mesa Unified School District. We have Back Bay and Monte Vista, Back Bay functioning as our traditional continuation high school, Monte Vista as our independent study 9 through 12 program. Our cloud campus, which is our virtual school, and you may remember you received a presentation at our last regular scheduled board meeting on that. And then we have our early college high school as well. So those are our three campuses that we consider non-comprehensive or non-traditional in our district. Back Bay High School is a program that is an educational option, and by law, students are not supposed to be enrolled in a continuation high school until they have reached age 16 or older. Typically, students are considered at risk of graduation, meaning they are typically credit deficient, or at risk for just not completing their program. Could be because they have different types of challenges, whether it's personal or educational. And at times, students have needed a more flexible learning environment. Up until the last few years, most California alternative education programs relied on the continuation high school to drive most of the credit recovery and remediation. So this is a longstanding program that California has used to help students graduate. The outcomes for a continuation high school really haven't changed. It really is about dropout prevention, increasing graduation rates, maintaining kids in school. Historically, students who've landed at continuation high schools have had trouble attending school, whether it's, like I said, educational, academic, personal. Attendance has been challenging, and so you'll see many students enrolled in these types of settings have those types of issues. So we want to recover students, and we want to make sure that they're attending and engaging in school. Somebody needs to have eyes on them. And then historically, we've had foster youth, and it's been also used as a diversion program when you think about students who've gotten in trouble with the legal system. And then it really is a supportive educational environment. We want to be able to provide a really caring, loving environment for students who may be experiencing any types of challenges. So when you think of a continuation high school, those are pretty typical concepts and outcomes up and down the state of California. We had some questions asked, are we one of the last districts to have a continuation high school? And the answer is no. We have 27 K-12 districts in Orange County, and we have 12 that include secondary schools, meaning 12 districts that include a high school, one or more. So you will see that we have several district partners in Orange County who still maintain and have thriving continuation high school programs. Lots of acronyms there for you, and we could actually play a game to figure out if you can figure out who they are. But we can clarify that in the end when we get to our packet. Then we have Monte Vista, which serves as our traditional 9 through 12 independent study program. So you may remember that before these last couple of years, we've been very creative since COVID, but prior to that, students who needed an independent study program, super flexible, maybe could not attend school on a daily basis, got to attend Monte Vista. And independent study has been around for an exceptionally long time. Again, this is a long-standing program in California. We typically don't have independent study schools. Typically, that's a program that lives within a school. And in our district in particular, we have students who have access to A to G coursework. They're able to obtain their diploma, be college eligible. There's just certain activities they don't participate in because they're not at a comprehensive high school. So they don't get all the bells and whistles of the regular experience of being in a comprehensive high school with activities and clubs and potentially athletics. Teachers who teach in these settings have appropriate credentials, and they flex their credentials because they're in an alternative site. As long as they have a valid teaching credential in a subject area, they're able to kind of broaden their scope and teach multiple courses, or I should say supervise multiple courses. And then, of course, we encourage it all to be content aligned to grade level standards. And again, the outcomes for an independent study program, how does that differ from a continuation high school? They both are graduation track, diploma track, and they both want to provide that flexible learning environment, but independent study is even more flexible. Students only report to campus a minimum, in high school at least, of a few hours a week, and they do truly independent work. Important things to just think about when we're considering programs, and while I have this listed under Monte Vista, it's really for all of them if you think about it. But the things we consider are teacher quality. We want to ensure that we're placing our students who are in a truly flexible environment with high quality individuals. So the goals of these programs really should be to have real important high teacher quality. We want to make sure that students have a process to get in. And so by law, we cannot just force students into independent study. We cannot just force students into continuation high schools. They have to have a pathway to these programs. So whether it's an application process or there is a district-wide process where we encourage a student to potentially be placed there with their families, they are part of that process. And then we need to support that process to make sure that a student at any given time has the right to return to their home school. And that's exceptionally important for us to keep in front of us, is that we should be able to allow them to return. We set standards for that. We keep them on pace and track to try to return to their home schools if they choose. Ensuring that standards-aligned curriculum is really important. Our board and our community wants to ensure that our students have access to high-quality instruction and materials as their friends do or other students do within our district. And that takes work when you're looking at an independent study program or an alt-ed site, because you constantly have to be bringing those teachers in and working with them to ensure that they're not missing a beat with all the new initiatives and or curricular shifts that are happening. In this case, at the secondary level, we need to make sure we're reaching out to them regularly and having them part of a PLC or a collaboration where they're constantly keeping up. And then the other thing is we want to ensure quality school leadership and school climate. One of the challenges any alternative site has is school climate. Because you're not getting the bells and whistles, the activities, the football games, and all the things that bring excitement and engagement to students, we have to think of alt-ed differently. And so we need to try to craft a really positive, loving school environment with a little distance, which is different because kids aren't coming every day potentially, or their day is truncated because it's only maybe 240 minutes instead of 360 minutes. So how do you create that sense of community and connection and shared expectations in a flexible learning environment? And so we're making great progress with that with our cloud school. We've done some tremendous work there. But just think about that as you're thinking about independent study programs. How do you keep kids connected when they're distant, they're away from us? And legal compliance, we have to operate within state guidelines, and there are rules that we have to follow when it comes to independent study. And we have really spent the post-COVID experience pulling ourselves in line with the regulations and rules that are governed by not only Ed Code for instruction, but FCMAT for our business office to really keep us in line, to ensure that we're enrolling students who are age appropriate, they're attending when they need to, we're tracking attendance, and we have master agreements on file, meaning that there is a process for students to be placed in these. You heard at our last board meeting a lot about Cloud Campus, but I just want to remind us that we have our new virtual program that really talks about achievement, culture, and learning style, and is driving an instructional program there to really meet the needs of students in our district who came out of COVID and who really have enjoyed the flexible, distant learning and experience that they have had. And so that's thriving. And just a reminder that we did found that in 2020 as a response to COVID. And we said last time that students still enjoy it. We have teachers who actually enjoy teaching digitally. And the law this year gave us AB 130 that said we had to provide an alternative setting. So we're proud of the work we've done in cloud, which you guys heard about a couple weeks ago. And just talking about research, when you think about alternative education in any program, you think about the why. Why do we do this? And if you can believe it, the first continuation high school was founded in 1919. So I was doing some research and finding some of the oldest ones. And another game we could play is if you know where it was founded. And it was founded actually. There's one out of state, which is in Hawaii, and then we have one here in California that was founded in Whittier, adjacent to the correctional facility, which was also the only high school at the time, at the turn of the century. And it really was a model to offer students this different place, right? And so that's where it roots from, and that's why we have challenges when we talk about alternative ed, because why does it have a stigma, or why do we not understand it? Because it was never founded to be something that we believe it to be today. It was something for students who didn't necessarily at the time fit in, whatever that meant. But it's been a while. So we've been doing this for over 100 years, and I believe that we're doing it better than we were in 1919. That's for sure. And then in the 1990-91 school year is when the state of California opened the door for all school districts to offer independent study. As a program. You always had a student or two who might have been ill, or something had come up where they needed days off, and the school would work with them. But there were regulations that governed that as well. And so that opened the door. And again, all of our partner districts have a version of alternative ed. When you think about early and middle colleges, those go back as about 30 years ago, and those are thriving right now. In fact, those are the next most popular campuses that districts are trying to found in their school districts, because people are seeing the benefit of the early college experience and the acquisition of early college credits. People are really excited about that, and I think parents are actually kind of catching on to why these schools are attractive for many students. And then, of course, we have information on the types of things that early college students gain when they leave our programs. Not only do they get a high school diploma, they're earning college credits, and then, of course, we have some that are actually acquiring that AA degree, which is the goal. So lots of different purposes for our programs, and they've been around for a long time. And so that's the purpose of this slide. And just letting you know that in 2021, there were 430 continuation high schools in California. And we have right now 3,800 comprehensive high schools in California. So it's a small carve out. And very few districts have actually closed their continuation high schools. There are some that have, but they've modified their program and they've recreated it, so to speak. And so those students are still being served, but not necessarily in a continuation high school model. So those are just kind of some FAQs for you to kind of get you acquainted. And now I want to be able to present to you what's in your folder so that we can have a discussion and generate some thoughts. Thanks to my lovely assistant, Claire Warner, everything is color-coded. So we can speak by color, which is great. Your yellow document is your budget. And so Jeff Trader's office got together with me and we prepared for you the cost for alternative education. On the back side, you'll have cloud, which we can speak to in just a moment. We have early college academic data, which is in green. That just kind of highlights for you all the different academic data for the alternative ed sites. You have early college, Back Bay, and Monte Vista there. It also tells you how many people we have working at each site. So you'll see, if we just look at the green for just a moment, where it says early college, you'll see certificated, classified, health services, special ed, food services, other staff, and administration. So it lets you know how we're staffed. And I did the best I could to place people where I felt like it could be in a good category. So that tells you who works there, and then we have some academic data for us. If we could move on to the salmon colored document, that's just early college data. One of the things we want to think about when you think about early college is, how is this different? Continuation high school talks about at-promise youth, students who've shown sign of risk of not graduating. You have Monte Vista kids, independent study, who want that exceptionally flexible lifestyle. And then you have early college, and you wonder, well, who goes there? You have 220 kids there this year who, in a sense, also want a different environment. And they want a more collegiate environment where it's a small environment, they have a very focused course of study, and their outcome is very specific. They want to be able to obtain a level of college credits to get them in the door. The profile of an early college student tends to be a first-generation college student who needs that additional access, whose family is encouraging them to get those, 30, 40 credits because they can go in potentially to college as a transfer student, especially if they get that AA. They go right in as a junior. That's a game changer for many of our families. And then you have students who are just, as I say, sometimes mature beyond their years, and they just don't want to deal with high school stuff. They just want to go to school, and they want to get an education that's going to get them out quicker. Mm-hmm. So I've talked to some of the kids. I spent a lot of time with Dr. Martinez and his students, and they're very honest about that. Sometimes they just don't want the high school experience, and they just enjoy the smaller version of it. In the pink document there, you have subgroup data. This is just traditional group data by school. I think it's important for you to have a comparison. You'll see all of our schools are on there, but that way you know how our students are broken up by school. And it's always powerful just to understand the numbers and who our students are, although they are more than a subgroup. Our state does recognize them and place them into these categories. And then you have like a grayish document right behind that, which is just the student profile. That has changed over the years. Someone asked me, well, what kind of student goes to Monte Vista or independent study? Because, we need to think differently about this. And it's changed over the years. And so when I was interviewing some of our current staff and Mike Wagner and some teachers, they talked about, before it used to be a lot of the professional athletes and student actors, particularly in Newport, in Corona Del Mar side of town. We had a lot of students who were traveling for work. They were young workers in those types of industries. And so therefore they needed that flexible learning environment. And so that was the historical student, or I'm going to, I'm a gymnast, I'm an ice skater, and I'm going to do 4 classes at Newport Harbor, and then I need to do 2 at independent study so I can be gone by noon because I have practice till 8 o'clock at night every day, which we still have a few of those. But that used to be what I was told historically who we had. And that's changed. So now we're seeing a significant number of students who are coming forward who just don't and cannot go to school due to social emotional issues, mental health issues, and we're seeing an increased rise in anxiety. And that's definitely started to happen before the pandemic, but it's definitely a reality now. So post-pandemic, students are really struggling emotionally with just not only coming to school, but just operational functioning in life. So the pandemic has brought out a lot of different challenges for students who may have already been facing some of those challenges. So it's changed a little bit. So in talking with the teachers and talking with the principal, really appreciating the support we've given the campus to help those students maintain their status as an independent studies student. When you think about Monte Vista, always remember that an independent studies student here will check in once a week. That's by law, they're required to check in only once a week. They can come more if they want. They get welcome to schedule more time, but they only have to come once. And so sometimes we ask ourselves, right, is that the best for a student who's fragile to only be seen once a week? So it's just a question mark we ask because we look at every student differently. And so that's been a discussion as we've been working with the administration at Back Bay and Monte Vista is to really pay attention to the students and is this still the best place for them? And that goes back to once a student's placed in any alternative program, they don't have to live there forever, right? So can we encourage them to come back to their home school? Is there a way that we can do a blended program with them and do a modified day and bring students back for 4 hours a day at their comprehensive school and then give them a few hours of independent study to meet the needs? And then that's something to consider when you think about Cloud, because Cloud is a virtual program where teachers in a virtual space are seeing students for the most part every day. We've done a really great job with Dr. Stevens this year of really ensuring the synchronous time or live time with teachers is up to date and that we're seeing kids on a regular basis. So one of the things we've thought about is really thinking through independent study and Monte Vista kids kind of merging into Cloud. So could we merge some of those students into Cloud so at least they're getting the flexible learning environment? They can still do their studies and travels and other things that they need to do, but at least we're seeing them with more regularity. We'd have more eyes on them. We'd have time to talk with them, do those check-ins. That may be potentially a very good option for some of our students. And Cloud, by its very nature, is defined by the state as an independent study. It's just delivered virtually. And so for the auditors and the business people in our world, it's considered independent study. It's just a different delivery model. So you'll see that often when you read about virtual schools. It's a different delivery instructional model. That may be something we want to consider when we talk through this today is like, are there students that could be served through independent study through the Cloud? So that's something for us to talk about today as well. And then your final document there, which was added, this is a late add, so this was not sent to you. It is white. It is the last paper because that's all I had, and I wasn't going to ask Claire again. It's just a list of the alternative education sites in our partnering districts and their classes, minutes per week, their hours, and their grading period. And this was actually presented 2 years ago to you. So I stole this morning from Dr. Baumeister's presentation when you guys were converting Cloud to the quarter system. I clipped it from there. So just to kind of remind you of where we sit in Orange County with our time and how we operate the programs. So part of what we want to have a discussion about today and why we have us together is really just to discuss ideas and concepts and or thoughts you have on the data that you've seen and what you've heard. Now that you've heard a lot about Cloud last time, you've heard more about Back Bay and Monte Vista, and you know about early college. Does the group have any other ideas and or suggestions that could come from this information? And I'm welcome to pass the mic if you.
Would be good to add to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for all these documents, and I love color coding. So they speak to me. The one question that I wanted to throw into the mix also, as we think about which direction which students are best suited, I love the idea of, well, I'm going to ask my other question to Trustee Bartow, since I have the mic, because it kind of prefaces the other one. With the Monte Vista, the gray sheets, I found super informative because it's like the blue writing was the intent of Monte Vista, and the red writing is the reality of Monte Vista. And the reality of Monte Vista is the reality also from the subgroup data pile, the reality of Back Bay profile, it seems like, even though the intent of it was maybe the profile of cloud or early college even. But who it's actually serving is really indicative of more of a Back Bay type student. So the merging potential there, but then we do have to address the intent, which is the blue. So who could best serve the blue? And that would be a cloud campus. It sounds like that's the thinking there. So thank you for that, because that really helped delineate the two groups of students. And so my question in getting at the Back Bay students is, what is the relationship between the percentage of kids at Back Bay or Monte Vista, frankly, at this moment in time versus 5 years ago, and access schools? What percent of those kids have come in or out of access, have some touch to access schools, and then come back into our system? Because that, to me, is one of the bigger concerns, is the access schools, because when we lose these high-risk kid who is having difficult situations or some discipline issues or whatever, and they go to access, we lose sort of control over them, and we can't give them counseling or wraparound services because they're not our kid for that time period. So that's something that's just been concerning me on another front, but this discussion kind of speaks to it too, because is there a way that we can keep our kids here, and rather than access, we keep them here and we give them all the services that they'll need, which might need, Back Bay might need 4 counselors or 2 psychiatrists or whatever it's going to need, but to make sure that we best serve the kids that are tending to be over there. I mean, we have 20% of the homeless kids there in Monte Vista, 12% at Back Bay, so that's the high-risk kids that are going to need the wraparound services. So just understanding that access link, and do we have to send them to access, or can we keep them here?
That's a great point. And access in our district, and access to access, so for those of you who don't know what access is, it is a county school that is an alternative education site funded by OCDE that any Orange County school district has the ability to send their students to. And the majority of students who attend the Orange County Access Program have had typically a disciplinary action against them. That is 99% of the students who attend Access. So in our district, we have exercised our rights to send students to Access at various moments in time through student services. That is something that we have discussed as an educational services team with student services, that's really not where we want to go. That what you've described is true, that once you let a student go, that you don't really have control over their educational program and supports. And we will always have the option to receive them back, because by law, a student can only be removed from their home district for 12 months, basically 1 year, based on their expulsion. You're not expelled for life. We're young people. We have the responsibility to accept them unless they've been incarcerated youth. That's a whole different group of students. That's different. But if you have a student who's just done something really bad, made a bad judgment, and they go away for a year, they have the right to return. We have, as a district, executed that differently over the years, and that's something that we are working on. And we have decided that we're not sending kids to Access just to send them to Access. They can only go if they've only placed there, let's put it that way, if we cannot accept them because they become a safety issue. We're working directly with our new administrative director, Sarah Coley, on that, because she oversees that now. And so she has been in agreement with that vision to not just send away students who may be just not meeting the standard.
Thank you so much. And then the one thing that I just wanted clarification before it goes to, because it said in the red, a large group of back-based students are enrolled in Monte Vista because they're not allowed to attend Access. What makes someone not allowed?
So that's us saying no. So what's happened this year? So what's happened in Ed Services is, for example, a principal will come forward and say, I want to send Carrie Torres to Access because I cannot deal with her anymore. She's just not doing anything, but she's also not lighting any fires, but she's not doing anything. We have denied their request. We have said, no, you're not going to send them to Access. You're actually going to find a place for them here. So let's call Mike Wagner and let's figure out, based on the student profile, should we send them to continuation school, depending on their credit situation, or do we do Monte Vista? Like, what's best? The next option we need to start discussing is how can cloud support that? So as we have cloud as a program that does have a high school component, and a very good one at that, how do we leverage cloud to also support some of these students? Because again, a student who's not successful, who's not attending school, who's not engaged, and we're placing them in an independent study program where we're only asking them to engage for 4 hours a week, again, may not be the best. So let's look at cloud and how do we leverage that, because now I can meet with that student every day for 3 hours maybe, or every other day for 4 hours to have eyes on them and ensure that we're doing what we can to provide them with what they need.
Following up on that, thank you. I was looking at. It says green.
I can't hear you though.
Eat it.
Okay. So in looking at the numbers again, for Back Bay and Monte Vista, for the English language learners, the numbers there are quite high. Back Bay, it looks like there's 40%, and Monte Vista is 29%. I'm not seeing on the list of staff that there is an ELD teacher that is designated to each of those schools. Do we have an ELD person?
We have not. We have not historically, no. So we're working on that. And we actually did fly positions mid-year. We didn't have a lot of success this year trying to get ELD teachers in the district because we flew them, I want to say in December or January. It was late. That has been something that, again, we just haven't had eyes on. And so you're right that anytime we place by law an English learner at a school site, we have to have English learner services. And then when you get to a certain percentage, you need to have a teacher that can provide that level of instruction. And so we are adding ELD teachers in several different locations in the district, Back Bay being one of them.
What is that number that they would require an ELD?
Well, you look for a class. So all students need to have ELD support.
Mm-hmm.
So we have different levels of ELD. Students come in as a 1, 2, or 3, or they used to call them beginners, newcomers, right? So the language has changed over the years. And so for us to hire a teacher, we look at, well, how else could we support them if we only had a handful? So we only had like 3 or 4 or 5. Can we do this? Because some teachers have authorizations within their credentials to provide that in English. So we look at that before we start hiring. But when you get to a point where you can't just have it one section where you're doing more, then you say, okay, we need to hire a teacher. We also look at levels because students, again, they're not all at the same language proficiency level. So we need to be able to have a teacher who could have multiple levels to be able to provide that. And I don't know that we have looked as deeply at that in the past as we are right now.
And then kind of a follow-up on services related to Back Bay. It looks like we have an on-call social worker and on-call behavior specialist. It sounds to me, particularly if we have students that may be close to Access or just have a really high amount of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that need support rather than removal from their original comprehensive high school. Is there a plan to have more support staff, like a full-time social worker at Back Bay, a full-time behavior specialist, full-time support, because these students are very at risk?
So what we're doing in collaboration with Student Services is we're taking back feedback from the SAIL team. So what we've done as a district is we've placed these types of supports all around the district through teams, and they go out and they support schools. And those that have part-time because of potentially the numbers of students they serve. And so one of the challenges we have is that while Back Bay may only have, for example, 110 students today, they're high-need students. And so we're trying to get feedback from the sites to say, is this plan working for you? Are these services working for you? Because if they aren't, and they can base that on data, then we can say potentially there's the chance for us to be able to provide more support. But this is our first year really where we're really putting support staff out into the schools, and we're trying to collect the information to see what's working and what's not.
Thank you. And then I just have one more question about the costs for, which one was it? I had emailed you about it. Oh,
Yes.
for cloud. the more comparable costs per student.
So cloud, so on your buff yellow sheet, I don't know what you call this, it's yellow, I guess.
Mary.
Yes, canary.
So you have on one side, it says alternative ed costs, second interim budget, and so you'll see a Back Bay cost line, Monte Vista, the two of them combined, early college, and then your comprehensive high school, and then you see on the very bottom the per pupil, basically a rough per pupil allotment that you have there, or expense. When you look at cloud, cloud is on the other side, and again, this is one that I shared with you in the presentation before, but we're at about $4 million for this current school year. So when you look at per pupil, when we were at 2,200 students 2 years ago with cloud at $11 million, our per pupil is roughly about $5,300. So if you go back 2 years, we were investing in cloud about $5,300. And Jeff, you can check my math, but that could be a few cents off, but about $5,300. When you go into this current year, when you're looking at our current investment of about $4 million, and we kind of had a high of 555 students at one point, that drove our number to about $7,500 per pupil. And right now, we are at, let's see, we're at 246 students because any alternative education site kind of fluctuates, but we always have to staff at the high. And so we started off high, and so that's where we're at with so our budget was kind of built on that 555-ish pupils, and that's about $7,500. So we have definitely, and I know you were, to your question, Trustee Anderson, was, it wasn't completely perfect in math because we overfunded, and Jeff came out with a formula in his office to fund a cloud student, like what we thought it would cost. Then we ended up adding staff, and so it went up a little bit. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for this robust package. Staff, thank you for all the work, and Dr. Torres. It is evident that we definitely need to have this, we should be having this discussion. As Trustee Ursulou pointed out, the intent versus the reality is a wake-up call to all of us, and I think that we definitely can do better. I do have a couple of questions. One is, Back Bay switched to the quarter for this year, right? Mm-hmm. Have we seen any movement of needles, the needle moving in a better direction because of that, or how are we looking on that?
Yes, so students earn 15.4 credits now. Is that right? Can I get got a thumbs up? Yes, per quarter. So yes, we are seeing students able to acquire more credits more rapidly, and so this will be our first year with data to see if that improved our graduation rates or not.
Okay.
And if that's the only sole data set we look at for that, but that's something that we're definitely tracking.
All right, and speaking of graduation, what is needed to graduate, the graduation rates, would someone be able to break down, or at least give us insight as to the 59% grad rate? Is it because certain students are leaving the program, thus they're not completing their education at Back Bay, or what are some of the factors involved in that?
Great question. So looking at graduation rates in California is interesting because they measure two things: cohort data and then your annual data, so your class data. So the class of 2022. So whoever's in seat by October 2nd, CBED's Day, is who they look at for the class of 2022. That's one number. And that typically tends to be higher because students will tend, if you're there in your senior year, you tend to graduate with that class. The challenge becomes the cohort data because they look at you and they say, okay, you started in 2018, you've changed schools, so you fall out of that. You fall out of the data sets that you really kind of should belong to, and so you end up getting a lower cohort data. So that's like high surface level data. George, you're right there, so he's agreeing with me, so that's good. And then the other piece to just consider is students do leave, and they just leave. Disappear, and that has been That's been a challenge for us,
Yeah.
especially with our new influx of foster youth and homeless youth within our district especially, is we have a lot of students who aren't completing the program. And they don't, they don't naturally go to adult ed. Because one of the other things we can do, which we don't operate our own adult school program, we send our students to Huntington Beach, which works well for us. But we can do better at helping those students and say, okay, if you want to exit with us, then go to adult ed and enroll and at least give it a shot. And that would change our graduation rate somewhat, but still not that cohort data. Because that cohort data is going to track that person regardless of where they land. And that came out new with the California dashboard. That wasn't something we were always held to for all those years. But California really had an interest in saying to schools, you should try to keep your kids as long as you can. We're going to watch you for that and measure you against each cohort.
Just two more questions, just real quick. How do we compare as far as our grad rates to the other 11 school districts that we listed on this? Is it? I mean, are they also in the 50 percentile or 60 percentile of graduates? And if you don't have the question now, we can come back to it.
So I'd be happy to compile that data. I actually put out a survey to OCDE partners, so my Java likes on Friday, just to kind of collect that data, and I would imagine I'll have that in a week or two. Dr. Olmstead's helping me with that. I asked for a couple of other pieces of data from alternative ed sites that weren't currently visible on their websites. I will say, having been in 3 former districts with alternative ed sites, I would consider 59% on the improvement side, meaning we have room to grow there. I think that there's definitely a place for us to move up. I feel like that is a little bit low, but I don't want to say that without not having all the information and knowing that we've had a really difficult couple of years. Yeah. And so that, our look should also be back even prior to the pandemic, because that's really rough to look at and to determine how we landed there.
Okay, and then one more question, and then I'll give it to you, Shar. She keeps.
I'm just checking.
The pink sheet. I noticed there's some GATE subgroup data, and then what was the intent of putting that in there? That was it just to?
Oh, yes. So, do you need it back? So, I'm good.
Just to give us.
No, I was just, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong one. So no, GATE was just to give you another data set. So we do measure students, they can become GATE identified. We just wanted to be able to show you that's another set, just a set of information when you look at subgroup data. And, sometimes we don't always know or realize that we actually have GATE students who fall into, our most gifted, sometimes our most at risk.
High risk, yeah. That's why it was nice to see this, because a lot of times they need to belong somewhere else, and alt ed makes sense for that track.
Mine is a simple question. I was curious to hard number enrollment data. We've got percentages, and I appreciate that, which shows a different thing, but how many students are actually enrolled in? You mentioned Back Bay had 110, that was good, I was taking notes. And Cloud Campus was a high of 555, and we're about 246. And I totally understand the flexibility of the numbers going up and down, because it's students as need. And at this time of year, they're working their little fingers to the bone to get back to their high school if they're the really hard credit recovery kids, or they're not, or they're comfortable where they are. But mainly, how many kids are officially enrolled in Monte Vista, and then comparison with the enrollment data. And that I've been I ask for that all the time, just because it does tell its own story.
And I can provide that to you. So I can get you current enrollment data, and I can get you current student numbers, but not by percentage, but actual numbers in each setting.
Thank you. Krista.
While you pass that down, to your question, Jeff and the team are putting together a multi-year study. So they're already working on that. Once you brought it up, they started to engage the work. And so it's enrollment over years, by school, by grade level, projections, and also transfer data. So it'll be comprehensive.
And we have a district enrollment report that comes out every month, And it's just something that I always looked at and did it in my head and said, oh, look at this. This is staying the same or going up or going down. It's just more data.
Yep.
So as I was looking at alternative ed, I realized it was kind of in two forms, people that have to be there and people that want to be there. So we look at Back Bay and in some form, I guess, some Monte Vista students that kind of have to be there. They're pushed there. However, there's a huge opportunity to have, like early college, we see how successful that is. And those are the people that want to be there and it's thriving. And I hate having the stigma of those that, have to be there. Oh, I'm here because I blah, blah, blah. And so it's interesting to me as we're looking at this, it would be interesting as we move forward to see how can we get those that have to be there to want to be there in ways and offer those transitions? Because maybe those people that are, those students that are in that because they have to be there are already resigned to the fact that this is going to be their life or whatever is going to happen to them. So rethinking, what does continuation high school look like and giving them those other opportunities. And when I was thinking about it, a lot of times hands-on, giving them those job skills. School's not for everyone, but working is actually easier. So involving CTE in our alternative education, not just for those that have to be there, but those that want to be there. Because if I look at our jobs over the last 2 years, they have completely changed, right? I'm working from home more, even though I was before, but I working from home. I don't really travel. All these things has changed. So our education system has to go with that as well. And I think we have a unique opportunity to create alternative ed without having any kind of stigma around it for anyone that would want to do something like that. The opportunity with Cloud Campus and Monte Vista and having that, hey, I go to school, online, and then I'm able to do something over there. That kind of sits nicely with maybe a CTE program as well. So I just, as I'm looking at this, maybe I'm brainstorming a little more about what it could be, but I just think that it's an exciting opportunity for us as a district to really be like best in class when it comes to alternative ed and provide students with that, next level education. That kind of excites me. Couple other things that I was thinking of, and I'm not necessarily sure if they're really questions, just thoughts. As I'm looking at Cloud Campus, and I'm talking about, elementary programs as well, there's been a big push on the homeschool front for, various reasons, either curriculum-based or whatever they want to do. But they do this where they are in person two days out of the year. So that would be very interesting to see how we can, as we carry on with cloud, how can we do that where they're in person as well, say 2 days a week, or they have a kind of hybrid where we don't necessarily shove that hybrid program to our teachers in the mainstream elementaries, but we can offer that maybe in cloud. And then early college. I hear a ton from parents that would love to have their regular students that are in, the comprehensive high schools to be able to have ability to take those community college classes and get that opportunity. But, they don't want to go to early college because they do want to do the full high school experience, I guess you would call it. So just having some sort of opportunity maybe to do that. And then I think, early college is so successful. I would love to be able to, put more students there and potentially go for, I know that there's a certain profile of these students, but I don't think that early college is necessarily for a certain profile. I think it's for a certain profile that wants to graduate, early and get those, but they don't have to be first generation students as well. And I think there's a really rich educational environment that early college can have. So while I maybe don't have questions, I just wanted to explain my thoughts on this and just say, this is just really, really interesting. And I guess maybe the question would be, what are we also thinking about other alternative eds, and how some of my statements.
Well, I appreciate your comments in terms of, how do you enhance and rebrand and kind of make this place a place that kids want to be. And we're working right now, actually, Dr. Shaka, Lisa Snowden, at looking at the opportunities for CTE and ROP to be able to push into the Back Bay environment. And Lisa Snowden has been pushing for that since I came aboard. That was one of the things she asked for. I really want to get something over there to be able to offer to the students. So that's something that's already on people's minds, and we're excited about that. In response to early college, let me back up really quick. In regards to, just how do we get kids to love to be there? One of the ideas that we were brainstorming with the principal and our leadership team in Ed Services was, sometimes when you don't, as a leader, as a principal and teachers, if you don't really understand what's happening in alternative ed and around you, you kind of just only know what you know. So one of the ideas we had thought about was partnering with AXA. You don't know anything about AXA, but partnering with AXA because they have an EdOps division, so Educational Opportunities and Options division, to have some of their leaders and champions who have recrafted and rebranded alt ed in their districts just collaborate with us and talk with our teachers and our principals about what this could look like, right? So just how do you flip it so that people feel good about attending there and kind of reduce that stigma. So that's an idea that we had as we were chatting with our principal. And then just in response to early college and college opportunity, we are opening our dual enrollment program. We just got the agreement mid-year this year so that we can allow our students to take classes and have them on our other school sites as well. So we're looking forward to that. We're working through that right now. That'll be coming soon. So we'll be able to offer different things throughout the district that are college level coursework. And then while the data shares that typically the first a first generation college student lands at an early college, we offer it to all, and we be inclusive to all. It's just in a district like ours as well, where we have students who are well resourced in some areas, they gravitate towards different programs. Where this could be, if parents realized your kid could get an AA and actually go in as a junior and go to some of the top tier universities, you saw a list of where our kids go, you would cut out somewhere of $100,000, $200,000 worth of your child's education just by allowing them to have access to our program. But again, it's that, well, do I really understand what's happening there? And so we have work to do just to continue to communicate effectively regarding those programs and recruitment, just recruiting to all and making sure that we target everyone so that we can get a mix of students too at early college. Yeah.
Question on the cloud campus and elementary programs, and that's an alt ed program, but are we thinking about having more in-person time or, just try to round out that program a bit more?
So one of the things that John and I can work on is with our principal is gathering input from the teachers, because some of the teachers have suggested, like, can I meet with my students off-site at the park and go on a hike?
Right.
Can we do a craft day? Can we have science experiments? Yeah, like mini field trips, but where parents drive to a local park, because we wouldn't necessarily bring littles on the Back Bay campus, perhaps, during the day. That's it could be a challenge for us. But can they go somewhere? Could we have another district site where they go and they could do activities where they get to connect and have those authentic connections and then hands-on experiences, but it wouldn't be like regular, but enough where they'd have those opportunities. So that's something that Dr. Stevens has brought up too. So that's exciting.
Awesome, great.
Does early college, high school fill up?
Does it fill up?
Like, is it?
Yes. So
Oops. We're just saying who goes first.
Okay.
but yes, when I say it fills up, we don't close the doors,
Right.
but we do staff it appropriately. And as students come in, we just make adjustments. And Dave's really good about watching enrollment, but it pretty much hovers around the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're over our time, so I won't take a lot. And I just wanted to, my comment really was on all this information, which I think is all great. The Monte Vista profile is the thing also for me that was the most remarkable, because I did have a child who used Monte Vista for the original intent of it, and to see the changes in it, there's obviously things that we probably should be doing to change that. Or change how we use Monte Vista. Because as we've seen, people are working from home now, and there's some people, even though people are coming back to work, companies are calling them back, there are some people who don't want to come back for various reasons, not just COVID. Their circumstances are that they would prefer to work at home. I think the same thing is for students who are in the cloud campus. I know some who went there originally for COVID and found out it's a better learning environment for their children, and they're really thriving in that. So, to me, it's important to keep a semblance of that as we move forward. And early college is, I know, not just for, the original intent. I was here when it started. So I know it was for first generation initially, but I know also there are some families, even from Corona Del Mar High School, who have decided to send their students there because some came from other countries, and in England, it's more like the high school they had, or something like that. But also the fact that their kids don't need all the extracurricular things. They're not so compelled, but they really would like to take advantage of more of the college courses. And having that opportunity to have an AA degree is pretty spectacular. So anyway, I definitely think there are areas that I know you all will come up with some good options for us to consider.
Well, I'll go because it sounds like
That's fine.
all right. Thank you. This is really great. I think this gives us a unique opportunity to have all this data because we wouldn't have it we wouldn't have it otherwise. Yeah, especially with like the cloud. I'm kind of parsing it. It seems like there's kind of three groups of students, elementary, and then high school who are a little more self-directed but needed an alternative environment, and then those who, for whatever reason, anxiety or credit recovery are just struggling and need that kind of hands-on. So I'm thinking about it that way, and how I like how we're bringing that college dual enrollment to our comprehensive high schools and ROP as well, or providing all those things. But I'm thinking similar to kind of your point, how we kind of look at this. For example, when I was in college in Austria, there was the school by us. It was a high school that was for students who maybe needed a little more help and a little more of a reason to be at school, but it was more ROP focused with a little bit of college course focus. So basically, when they graduated, they had everything that they needed to go and be successful. I think that even if you've got a student who's got credit recovery, maybe offering them a college course is not the obvious thing. But on the other hand, if you're saying, hey, this is your way into the rest of your life, maybe that's something that we approach, just an idea. And then for the elementary, how many elementary students do we have in cloud? Because I feel like there's a lot of kids who really like that for various reasons. But
186,
186.
so it's 186. Okay.
This year, I believe we have that, let's see here. Yeah, 160 elementary as of 2 weeks ago, and 186 for secondary.
Yeah.
160.
Because I think,
But it was higher at the beginning of the year, but that's what we have today.
yeah, because I think we'll always have that contingent of elementary kids, and I think this is really great to focus on the secondary because we haven't looked at it a ton, but keeping in mind those kids who, got various disabilities or, reasons. I know my dyslexic son would probably rather learn in that environment. So anyways, those are just my comments.
Changed my mind.
Thank you. I liked what you were sharing about the educational opportunities, it just kind of changing that language. Even something as simple as flexible learning environments or something that removes that stigma. I think we have stigmatized it, and so I think just thinking of creative ways to call it something a bit different. I love how we changed ELD to multilingual. There's just, an asset kind of a mindset instead of it being a negative. And I think something that stood out to me recently that Dr. Yoakum said was we no longer segregate students with special needs. A lot of the students that are Back Bay and Monte Vista have been separated for a variety of reasons, but they're also some of our most vulnerable students. And so I think it's a great opportunity as we lean more into community schools and having wraparound support and including maybe executive functioning. It sounds like there's a lot around kind of self-direction that's needed. Are there any ideas about how we could kind of incorporate or change our model of thinking about that entire process, how it would impact community schools, or how community schools could impact how we think about this?
Well, I think that's part of our discussion today, and one of the probably logical outcomes of our discussion is to be able to go back to our team and start brainstorming. I think we do have some early concepts of where we can make some improvements, but we do want to start talking about that to figure out how we create a more inclusive environment I don't remember, Wes, you probably would, when AXA changed from alternative ed to educational options. We called the EdOps group. That was a couple of years ago because everyone recognized that brings about a certain feeling for people and connotation. Thank you. And so the state has been doing a lot with our groups to really change that. We went from at risk to at promise at the same time. So we no longer call kids at risk, they're at promise. And that does matter. But part of our work, and that's why I asked for Dr. Shaka and Dr. Barremeister to be here, is to be able to start thinking through how could we start looking at what a new structure could look like to be most supportive of the students who need the most help.
I would say though, because
You're fine. Yeah,
too
that was
close
good.
to the mic. But you brought something earlier about like mental health support counselors, psychologists, that kind of support. Certainly, that's in the wheelhouse for community schools. To have a community school resource center at Back Bay, for example, to have those services there daily, it's a perfect fit. Now, that doesn't get to the program design of like a net options conversation, but it can be a part of a comprehensive solution for improving the learning opportunities.
Awesome, thank you. And while we have George here, I love some of this information, but I would love to have our data chat that we sometimes we have, specifically around this, but I mean overall as well. So, because it's
He's been
May.
trying. Our wonderful assistant has been out of the office, and so we were waiting for Susan to get back.
Yes.
George was aware and has the data and everything ready to go, just to get them scheduled.
This is a great discussion. It's actually very exciting to be able to enhance and rebrand. I think you use those two very powerful words, so go team.
All right. Thank you so much. This was I was looking forward to this. Even before the admin at the HOA I went to yesterday was asking me all about what we were doing tomorrow. I really appreciate all this data, and I'm going to keep looking at it. So
We will follow up on additional data requested for the actual enrollment and enrollment numbers by subgroup as well. Yeah.
And I appreciate the folder because I anticipate more stuff going in it.
You can put your cloud presentation in there too.
Yes, right here.
Keep the
that's a
colors
great idea.
consistent. That would be an idea.
Good job on
That's
colors.
a struggle.
All right, so then I'm going to adjourn at 2:44.
Let's keep it.
Cool.